It takes all things in any kind and form in on itself and yet remains always itself unalterable, and in the eternal symmetry of its own size. It is an unalterable size inside of the manifold activities of the universe and indeed the universes. The human restricted personality is itself only from time to time conscious. In between times lie great holes in the consciousness. Yet when the human reaches death, the seer and knower in him, the spirit, cannot die, because, as a fragment of the creation, it is of eternal duration. On the objective side, nothing can touch the watching, subjective self. This self, existing for eternity, which is the life of the lives, can surely not be proven materially because it is of pure spiritual form and nature. Yet it requires no evidence for being gifted with rationality, because the spirit itself is its own evidence. Only in beings living in poverty of consciousness is evidence demanded for the existence of the spirit, because in their primitive thinking they cannot recognize its existence from the spiritual acts and events. The spirit itself is the basic foundation of any knowledge processes, and it itself enlivens any organ and any capability, out of the impulse for development and the existence of life. As a consequence of mental impurity, the spirit, the universal self, would be mistaken for the empirical self. If the human breaks through the veil that surrounds the self and removes the shells of the material pressure that restrict and cover it, he momentarily obtains, in the physical body, the determination of his being. The inner spiritual being, the life of life itself, which is infinitely simple and uncomplicated, forms a two-part unity of transcendental reality, cognition, knowledge, wisdom, love and freedom. The human is no mere biological phenomenon. In him is a spiritually conditioned physical organism in spiritual form, which with latent potentialities, is laden with the might of all creational powers. A philosophical glimpse in the physic being of the human forces to recognition and knowledge the reality of the cosmic consciousness, the creational power of life, as the basis and life of physic substances. The human cannot comprehend humans merely on their biological and mental planes, rather also on the psychic and spiritual planes. Everything that the human inherits, everything that he brings with him through the billion-fold existence of the past, everything that he enjoyed, knew, read, learned or experienced in this or in past lives, lies concealed in his unconsciousness. Why, therefore, does he not master the technique of concentration? And why does he not order his unconsciousness and make full use of all his knowledge and ability? The yearning after all his knowledge and ability, after the experience and after the wisdom, lies yet hidden deep in him. He must only recognize and accept the truth and order, therefore, to acknowledge and utilize it. But for this it is required that he fight his own stupidity and acknowledge that the material intellect constitutes no human, if it does not also, in the same measure, work together with the spiritual intellect. If that happens, and the human recognizes his spirit, the entire abundance of knowledge, wisdom, ability, freedom, love and peace collected in earlier lives comes about again and richly benefits him. Knowledge, might, power, wisdom, freedom and love are the creational inheritance of the absolutenesses, they are the human birthright. It is the center of thoughts, might, power and influence on everything and anything. It certainly has a body, but it is not the body itself. The body is only an instrument and a servant of the spirit. It is its housing, but not its prison. The body is the temple of the radiating spirit, the self-illuminating inner life, the creational self. The body is the castle of the spirit, which brings all powers into motion. Thus the human knows that he also breathes the breath of the spirit and not only the bodily breath. The human learns of his spirit only through meditation, through knowing inner contemplation, through deep sinking in the stillest chamber of the spiritual self, and in which he takes the mirror of the inner life directly in view. He may not, however, do it in the form and way as the earth human does who would be led up the garden path by religious deceivers, because this meditation is no spiritual look, rather only a fantasy-filled discharge of unreal wishes of the imagination. Real meditation in spiritual form requires a gaining of understanding regarding his own being and self, and that one holds both facts before the eyes, that the existence of the eternal reality and truth and the rooted in oneness of all manifestations, from the star to the form of the substance, from nature to the spiritual life, are altogether only one in creational balance. Every human is, in his innermost essence, a manifestation of creation, and only therefore is it possible for everyone to become one with the infinite. The contemplation of these truths, of the essential existence of the creational, engenders knowledge and certainty. The direct look at the truth replaces all useless objections. The realization of the truth makes everything clear to the finest detail, and clarifies itself. The life on earth offers the human no complete satisfaction. It is not the entirety. The real finds itself on the other side of the material. The material life serves only as a guide, in order to reach the fine-sided, the spiritual. The material life is only the area of activity that delivers the human conditions and purposes in order to tie relationships together with the spirit and the greatest of all, the creational. It is completely wrong to restrict the field of view of life only to the observable phenomena and to allow the determination of the valuations of the objective worth of things. The majestic dignity and extent of life depends on how far it would be elevated to the laws of the innermost life in the highest essence. The relationships between humans are only justified so long as they themselves are not diverted from the eternal laws of the spiritual nature. Neither social welfare nor national improvements are possible through merely adhering to shadows and flinging the essential substance in the wind. The kernel of truth belongs not to a single human alone, because the truth forms being and life from everything which actually exists. Only that which is one, and held in common, can be, impartially and all-inclusively, within a self-identical existence. This is the full extent of the reach and the culmination point of all aspirations and ideals of life. The ethical basis of social and domestic relations is rooted in this integral spiritual comprehension of life. Society is the totality of the individuals, determines Murado to penetrate the veil and go into the realm of the immortal being, into creation itself. The human interconnections mean nothing less than the striving, in daily life, to live in a spiritual form, which is there in the deep background of all existing beings, but which cannot be found in a deficiency of truth. Thereby, in a lack of truth, the love of the spiritual is more and more lost, and the human sense turns itself more and more to the material and to his material intellect. Altruistic love is the expression of the visible consonance with the infinite life, which lies in the entire universe. If the family or society or the nation would be construed as a means of separation of one from another, then, as great as the goal of the coming together of the human being always may be, such a family, society or nation can never succeed.